Okay, it's time for part two now, where Emerson will be facing Matthew's deck. Matthew, can you tell us about the deck? Have you put it on screen yet?
Yeah, I've decided to, after you faced him with kind of an aggro creature deck, that I'm going to take a more control approach. This is my Jeskai Nahiri build that is pretty close to what I took to GP Vegas. I mean, I didn't do fantastically well. I think I was something like 3 wins, 4 losses, in a draw. The
Mhm.
last 2 losses are kind of I attribute to burnout, but it's like something I always fiddle with.
And
Cool.
Emerson, how do you usually face control matchups?
Um, I can't say that I've played a whole lot of control matchups with this deck, um, but I will say that I think that some of the most important cards in the matchup are probably Geist of Saint Draft and Selfless Spirit. Being able to protect my creatures from sweepers, um, and Geist just being a hard to deal with threat.
And I've also got the list up, and I believe it has been mentioned in the previous game where Spellqueller might actually be really good as well because of
Mm-hmm.
yeah, to protect against board wipes or
Yeah, and it can counter a Supreme Verdict or exile a
yeah.
Supreme Verdict because it isn't actually countering the spell.
Yeah, exactly. I believe that was mentioned previously. And
Yep.
so how do you usually close the game, Matthew?
Yeah, I mean, Spirits is not an ideal matchup for me because, as Emerson mentioned, Spellqueller is quite a nuisance. You can probably see from my list, I have 3 main decks: Supreme Verdicts and Anger of the Gods in the sideboard. Uh, that's largely because I used to run more Angers in the main when Dredge was a thing, but because of the prevalence of Death Shadow now, I bring Supreme Verdicts, but the
The
Spellcut.
Grixis variant. And
Sorry.
the Grixis variant, you mean the one who flashes blue for counterspell instead of
Yeah,
shadow?
yeah. Sorry, Grixis Shadow. That's the one. Yeah, but yeah. So that's why I played the verdicts. But as Emerson mentioned, Spellquellers are kind of a nuisance against verdict because it can exile it, and the other problem as well is Selfless Spirit. He can just sack Selfless Spirit in response to the verdict and save his whole team. So I do
Yeah.
have the early interactions with the four lightning bolts and lightning helix. So I generally to win I
Mm-hmm.
try and remove the selfless spirit. That's a priority, and I find that if I can kind of keep the board clear to land a Nahiri, then I can kind of pull ahead because he's playing 1 card a turn. He's only doing 2 damage, so between Snapcaster and my removal, I can just protect Nahiri
Yeah.
long enough.
And I see that if you manage to actually uh, safely get her to 8, you can -8 her for an Raku Aeon Storm, which is usually good.
Yeah. That's kind of the plan A. I put an Elspeth Sun's champion in there as well. That card's an all star just about every time it lands, and it's probably to do with Grixis Shadow as well. But the Emrakul, I mean, this is a bit dated, this list, because Logic Knot's becoming more popular, and it's kind of a non-bow with the Emrakul Nahiri, because as soon as you discard Nahiri, all your Logic Knot material is gone.
Mhm.
Oh yeah. When you discard the Emrakul, yeah, because it'll shuffle everything back in.
Yeah, and the other thing that I don't have is looking at my sideboard. I don't have Dispel or Negate, um, largely because if I'm facing a control mirror, I tend to take the aggressive path,
Mm-hmm.
and so something like Collected Company is a problem. So to sort of mitigate that to a degree, I have a Nevermore in the sideboard, which
Mm.
is useful against quite a few combo decks as well.
Nevermore.
Yeah, there's a two.
Yeah,
It's a 3 mana. So it enters the battlefield. I name a non-land card, and that card can't be cast.
Yikes.
Yeah, so I find in the current meta that if you play a decent amount of enchantments, people just don't have enough answers for enchantments. I've got the Ruined Halo as well.
Yeah, and this could be really good against a lot of decks.
Those cards are definitely strong.
like for example, Storm or the Abzan Vizier deck or Rip like Reanimator. There are lots of things that Nevermore can really take out of the deck and make it very hard for them to win the match.
Yeah, it's often people I think toss up between Ruined Halo and Nevermore, but I found that I bring in Nevermore a lot more than I do Ruined Halo.
Yeah.
Particularly,
Okay,
say, you can it can even be an option against Death Shadow because Grixis colors can't remove enchantments.
Right.
And so you can just Grixis Shadow. There's a few cards you can just shut down, and that's the end of it. So sometimes I'll switch in a Surgical Extraction as well, but I just don't have that at the moment.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, do you want to get into some games?
Yeah, let's fire one up. I'll jump in here. Just we've all got the new ratings on this server. This is the group server for those watching.
Yeah.
And I'm forever lucky, so I won the die roll.
That
I've
might
got-
play an important part, but I don't think it's as important as it was in the previous match.
I don't know if you guys can see my hand yet, but I've got a pretty solid one here. I'm going to keep it.
Yeah, probably for the next episode, I'll be recording the commentator for the second part
Yep.
can record the second part so we can show the hand. Right now, it's what's going to be from the perspective of Matthew.
Yeah, this hand is not ideal. Normally I'd like to at least see a Serum Visions in my opening hand, just to help filter, but it does allow me to do a few things reactively, so I'm going to keep this one. Because I need to hit land drops early. I don't want to risk going to 6 cards and not, say, only having 1 or 2 lands. So I'm going to keep this one.
Yeah.
Going to lead on Botanical Sanctum, Mausoleum Wanderer.
This card that I have a 2 of, it's not really ideal in this matchup because he has a number of cards that he can just sack. So whatever I target, he just sack,
Yeah.
and it becomes useless. So I'm going to play this untapped and pass the turn. Mausoleum Wanderer is just a pain in the ass because, sorry, a nuisance because it means that I'm basically playing a turn behind for everything if I want to play my spells.
And that makes it especially hard when you've got lots of lands that either come in tapped or you have to pay 2 life to have them come in untapped.
Yeah, and that card that he just played is...
Cavernous Souls into Selfless Spirit here to pump the Wanderer.
That's a good.
Off to a pretty good aggressive start here.
So I have 2 options. I don't really care about the 2 life points at the moment. I don't really want the Selfless Spirit, so I can either wait to the next turn or offer a trade. I'll take the 2 points.
That was actually quite an interesting decision for me.
Yeah, I can take the Wanderer down. Like I can. I mean, actually I might do that. I'll offer the trade. So I'll Path to Exile the Selfless Spirit. If he wants to save it, he can.
Yeah.
But Cavern of Souls is not like a... I often play blue-white control as well, and it's far more damaging to blue-white because most of my interactions rely on removal rather than countering.
So this is an interesting decision point here for me. I'm looking at this path to exile, and I could sacrifice the Wanderer to save the Selfless Spirit, but
You also get a land from Battle Exile.
I think that the ramp from this is actually pretty relevant, and I'm pretty okay with just letting this happen.
Yeah.
I'm just going to fetch out an island.
That's one of the problems with Battle Exile in the early game is that it can sometimes backfire as a
Well, yeah.
huge
Well,
tempo swing.
the other thing that I mean, it's not ideal for me to give him the land, but what it does enable is he may have been considering a play a land and a creature next turn, which would mean that this card here would be useless. But now he's in collected company range, I can play my land and pass the turn.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to play out a fetch land and a noble hierarch.
Yeah, Emerson ramping it up some more. He
Yes,
does only have 3 cards in hand at this point. Also 6 from matching. We'll have to see how that works out.
yeah, it's kind of awkward because if he has nothing else, the hierarch's going to be pumping this to a 2/2 every turn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it does have a spirit. It will actually be hitting in for 3 this turn.
Yeah, and I cannot stop the spirit because the next card he's going to play is Cavern of Souls. So he purposely obviously he can't tap the Cavern for the hierarch.
Yeah, and if you would see something like the Droskal Captain, that could really be very problematic.
Yeah, so I'm going to counter this because I have to do something with my mana. It's going to tie up his turn if he wants to protect it. I can't stop a Drogskull Captain anyway.
Yeah, the Cavern of Souls here being quite potent against Mana Leak.
Yeah, that's an interesting line. I think that I'm actually supposed to let this mana leak resolve and not pay for it. Yeah, I'm gonna let that happen.
Yeah, and just for us and those watching as well, there's still a bug with the mana leak where if you want to counter it, you've got to float the mana before you.
Oh, I believe that they fixed that, didn't they? With the most recent update.
There's a Drogskull, so yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did have the Drogskull Captain to follow it up.
That would have been quite dangerous. It would have made Mausoleum Wanderer be able to hit for 3 every turn, and would have hit for 4 this turn.
So now I can. I mean, the Drogskull has to get off the battlefield here.
Yeah.
And so
depends on how exactly you want to.
yeah, I'm just going to cast this because.
Yeah, I think I probably know what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh. And Detention Sphere is very good because it's not an instant or sorcery, so I can't use Mausoleum Wanderer to counter it.
That is something I did not think about, but that is true.
Yeah, the other thing I'm sort of looking at here is Emerson's down to 2 cards. I am hitting my land drops, so I'm kind of one decent card away from stabilizing.
Yeah, it will really depend on how much gas Emerson still has in his hand and how good his deck will treat him.
I had a little bit of gas, but I just got a little bit more. Yeah, I think this card is just so strong in this matchup that I'm not running out. forget everything else I was planning on doing with my turn and just get the Geist down while you're tapped out.
Yeah, hexproof being a real problem here.
Yeah, but also because Geist is a spirit, I couldn't have stopped it anyway with the cavern there.
That's true.
I do have a couple of main deck answers for it, but I'm at 11, so I'm on a 2-turn clock. And talk about timely. And with only 1 mana available, I'll run this straight up.
Problem, of course, being the Mausoleum Wonder.
It
Oh,
can't
wait,
be,
no, cannot be
yeah,
counted.
it cannot be counted.
Yeah,
The only threat to it is a
Spell Queller.
Spell Queller, which he was tapped out.
Of course, you had to pay 2 life to cast that spell, but
Yeah,
this
I had to
does
shock
stabilize
myself.
you.
So this is another interesting point in the game. I have a 3-drop and a 2-drop, which means I can't cast both this turn. But I'm also a little wary of casting this Collected Company in my hand into another Supreme Verdict. But I think that I don't really have a choice. I don't think that playing a single Spell Queller or a single Selfless Spirit is going to do me any good here. So
Yeah. And you choose to main phase Collected Company here out of respect for possible counter spell.
and I got a couple good hits here. I'm going to take a Garog Skull Captain and a Mausoleum Wanderer.
And
Those are good hits.
normally this is kind of annoying because the captain protects the Wanderer, so I've got to take the captain first.
Now,
That was quite a good draw.
Yeah.
The other issue I have is I don't have my second red, so something like Nahiri would be a bad draw at this stage. So I've got 2 options here. I can play the detention sphere.
Yeah.
Or I mean, I've got 3 options actually. The thing I'm thinking of here is that if I play one of the other 2, I have to pay 2 for it anyway.
but you might just want to play one of those spells to just take down the Mausoleum Wanderer. Because even if you sacrifice it,
Well, I have to take down the Drog Skull Captain first.
yeah, but that one you can just. Yeah, I think
Actually,
The-
what I would do, I think I'm going to do is I'm going to bolt the Drog Skull Captain, because even if he sacks in response, I pay the 2, so I get 2 of them down for 3 mana anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll go with that line. I'm going to main phase just because he's tapped out. Bolt the Drog Skull Captain.
Yep, and there's not really anything I can do about that. It's not worth sacrificing the Wanderer to let you kill both of my things for the Lightning Bolt.
And at 9, he's got 2 cards in hand. I'm just going to pass the turn.
yeah, an interesting thing is now whether you want to draw into more land or whether you actually want to draw into more control here because you'll probably need more land for
Yeah,
most
because
of your.
I mean, while that bolt was a good draw, it was kind of annoying missing that land drop there as well.
Yeah.
Because one of my keys, Elspeth, I'm looking for either Elspeth, Chandra, or Nahiri, and Elspeth is not ideal on this board.
Yeah.
Because the threats just fly straight over.
That's one of the problems with Elspeth in this match. Is that see,
Third Drog Skull Captain was a very good draw for me.
it is really becoming quite annoying how many drop skull captains.
Yeah.
ever since
How
the
many have we
draw.
seen? 1.
I believe you only played 3, right?
This is the 3rd.
It's a 4. It's a 4
okay.
of. All of the spirits are 4 ofs except for Geist of Sanctraft. That's only a 3 of because it's
Okay.
legendary.
Now you see, normally I cannot cast this at the moment because he can sack the Wanderer in response to protect the captain, and I think he would protect the captain.
But I think that might actually still be a good choice, depending on how much you value your life for gold.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to take the 3 here. Or
It's
actually,
basically a choice.
no, because I've got this other one, so I will. Yeah, I can get them either way. So I'm going to path the drug skull captain.
Hmm.
Because it was basically between using your life as a resource and just saving your card.
Huh. Yeah, this is tough. I'm not sure here. I mean, getting in the damage this turn, I don't know if it's as important as trying to keep a drug skull captain around. Hmm. Two cards left in hand. All right, I'm gonna let this go. I don't know if that was right, but
It's definitely an interesting choice here because you're both somewhat equal in cards right now.
Yeah,
And
I mean the thing that's always in the back of my mind is he can just top deck a collected company at any point and
yeah,
pull away.
so Emerson's deck has been treating him quite well already, not drawing any lands, which really helps him keep on playing problematic threat.
Yeah, I'm just gonna
this is a
get this.
little annoying.
Yeah, I'm just gonna get this pest off the board for now
Yeah,
and pass the turn. Just to keep a clean board, I think 7 life is not so bad, particularly if I can find something next turn.
but the possibility of two spirits coming in again
Mm.
and then him hitting for three again with one life probably going for the Arab Nessa, it's becoming quite tight there. So I do believe that that might have been a good choice.
See, so
Yeah, I'm just on the Selfless Spirit Go plan here.
this time I'll find I think a steam vents just so I can. See,
If you
I
draw
don't.
a Chandra, you can still
Yeah, I definitely need red. I don't really need any more white. Blue's always handy in this deck. So this is kind of a big draw here. Well, if I could, if I could choose all the bad cards that I didn't want, this would probably be top of the list. Oh, so
That's what I like to hear.
yeah, I'll pass the turn. I think off memory I played 2 in my deck because it's not a win condition. I mean,
Yeah.
it is a win condition.
So I'm looking at this one card in your hand. And if this one card in your hand is a removal spell, then I can't win next turn. But if it's not a removal spell, then I can win next turn. And I think that I'm so far ahead that it's not worth going for the win. And I'm just
taking
gonna.
a conservative play. Okay, taking a conservative play here.
I drew a blank.
And from my side, I'm thinking he's got 2 cards in hand and he's done nothing with 5 mana up. So he's either holding Collected Company or he's got a couple of Path to Exiles because he hasn't had any target for them yet.
Those might also have instant.
So
And now you,
I have 2 choices here. This card in my hand is not going to do a lot. It can mean that I can drop to 2 or potentially 0 if he flashes in the Selfless Spirit at the end of the turn. So I'm just going to pass the turn.
And keep up your colonnade.
Yeah, use the Colonnade as a blocker. If he
And now that I've attacked and you didn't use a removal spell and just played a land and passed the turn again, I think I'm good to run this out. And try to go for the win. Because I feel like if you had a removal spell, you probably would have used it on the Selfless Spirit last turn to try to preserve your life total.
Yeah, and normally I'd have to get the Selfless Spirit off because if I drew something like a Supreme Verdict, it would be a bust. A 4-mana removal spell for one creature.
Mm-hmm.
Playing out that mountain wasn't the smartest thing to do because you could have acted as to hand.
Yeah, that's a good
Something
point.
in your hand. Oh, but still,
So still the Godhead on the Spell Queller here is going to be unblockable lethal.
Yep, so
Yep.
I'll just concede that.
Yeah, and that Elspeth is not useful in this matchup.
Oh, it was an Elspeth? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Oh, man. So sideboarding in this matchup.
That will be interesting.
Let's see.
well, I have limited options in my sideboard. Definitely Anger of the Gods will come in.
Mm-hmm.
Elspeth is useless, so I'm going to get rid of Elspeth. I kind of need to keep up the removal. The Mana Leaks and the Logic Knot, they're on the chopping board, not necessarily going to go, because he might not always draw his... that land, I forget its name. But I just don't have very many...
Cavern of
Cavern of
Souls,
Souls, yeah.
Now, I do see one card that might be really good in that. I believe it's called. Is it Static?
Yeah,
Caster?
the Static Caster is going to come in. So I've got 2 cards. Nothing else really sticks out to me.
See, I'm not really sure sideboarding against this deck here. Paths probably seem a little medium. And I'm debating getting rid of Phantasmal Image. That Phantasmal Image I really like in the main deck on the play, or like in game 1. But I often board it out to make room for something else. Definitely bringing Kasali Pride Mage as a way to get rid of detention spheres. I think I want a Spell Skite to try to redirect and protect some of my stuff. And I'm considering 2 Rest in Pieces because I would assume that most control decks would be playing Snapcaster Mage, and nothing in my deck deals with the graveyard at all. So I think I am going to make that 5-for-5 change. -3 Path, -2 Phantasmal Image, +2 Pride Mage, +2 Rest in Peace, -1 Spell Skite.
How do you
Or
feel
+1
about
Spell Skite.
How do you feel about Steel the Godhead in this matchup?
I think that, I mean, it's a little bit of a liability for sure, but getting it down on a Geist, if I have a Selfless Spirit in play, is probably just game over.
Yeah, that does sound really good.
Yeah, so I've taken out Elspeth and I took out my Logic Knot. I've brought in an Anger of the Gods and Is It Static Caster. I'm just, having another quick look to make sure there's nothing else, because I'm tempted to bring in...
Probably running out of time there on sideboarding too, so...
Yep, I think I'm going to stick and go... I've got 5 seconds, yeah. I was tempted to bring in a Timely Reinforcement, simply just to have bodies and to replace a dead card, but...
Yeah, those bodies don't block fire.
This hand I'm going to keep.
Mine is definitely a little awkward, but I think it's a keep. I have all of my colors.
So what I would be looking at here is to take out a Selfless Spirit early, leading into it, clearing the board.
I'm gonna have to shock myself here for a Wanderer.
How do you guys feel about going first in this matchup? Because on one hand it does give a tempo advantage, but on the other hand it might uh, be more difficult to win with war of attrition when being the one that doesn't draw.
I that's a good question, and one that I don't think that I've put a whole lot of thought into. I think that this deck, for the most part, just wants to attack as much as possible. So,
Yeah, really
especially against
difficult.
control, like being on the play, I think is a good thing for sure.
Okay, so Emerson never ran out of Selfless Spirit, so that tells me he's got nothing for the 2-drop, because he would have obviously pumped the Wanderer. So this spell in my hand that I have now, it's kind of useless on this situation, because there's no way in the world is he going to let that resolve on the Wanderer. He'll just sack the Wanderer in response.
Yeah.
But the fact he's got no 2-drop is a good for me. Now this is an awkward
Of course.
card.
Yeah. You see here that he did have 2-drop.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep, I had the 2-drop. I just didn't want to like let you play your land and pass on turn 2, and then use your mana on my turn, and then untap and be able to do something on your turn. So I like playing this at the end of your turn if you have a counter spell or something, trying to make you use your mana on your turn, so I can untap and do whatever I want.
And this one I can't let resolve, because it means that he can be playing Geist of Sintraft on my turn. So it's just I can't really get rid of it with a spell, because it's going to pump the Wanderer to a 2, so it can be countered.
Well,
So
you can actually do it in response to the triggers. If you
and pay the 1.
Yeah, and then pay the 1. Because that would be a 2-for-1. So
Yeah, I think that's what I might do actually. So
just to ensure that we have
it can't be a 2-for-1 while the trigger is on the stack. So now the trigger goes on the stack. So now in response I will Helix the Rattled Chains.
And this is interesting too. I could make you tap out here, but I think that this is fine.
Yeah.
I think that this is fine.
Losing another card just to make him sack his Nessa would not really be advantageous in their position right now.
Yeah, and all in all, I mean, really what I was trying to do that turn was get him to use his mana on his turn, which I accomplished, so I'm pretty happy about that. I'm going to go ahead and run out of Selfless Spirit now. I didn't want to get my Selfless Spirit countered, so go ahead and get in for the 2.
So I'm going to fetch here. I need a red source. And it's just a question of what I get. I think because I have quite a blue heavy deck, I'm going to get a Steam Vents.
Yeah.
I have the second white source in hand. But I can't... So the Selfless Spirit kind of makes it awkward, because...
You can stack it in response, you can...
Yeah, so I've got a bit of a waste of a 4-drop.
So I'm assuming we're looking at like an Anger of the Gods or a Supreme Verdict here.
Yeah.
Which would just be a 1-for-1 with the Selfless Spirit.
It's quite an interesting turn here, actually. Because there are multiple paths that you can take.
Even the Lightning Helix that is sitting in my graveyard, it's... If I snap it back, can be countered by the Wanderer in response. The real problem here is the Selfless Spirit. I have to get the Spirit off the board.
Yeah.
I think I have a number of ways to make him sack the Wanderer, so the Wanderer's not the big deal here. So what I'm going to do, because I have this as well, whatever he runs out next turn, I can take care of. So he's
Yeah,
still.
I think
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play my Fountain untapped to leave up some options and pass the turn.
Mm. I'm just gonna go right into combat.
I'm going to have to
And
take
attack.
this.
always a good thing to go into combat before you try to play spells when playing against control.
And this kind of...
That might actually be quite problematic if you let it revolt.
So I'm my thought process here is I can counter the spell, but it's kind of pointless because my end game is to wipe the board. It's getting the Selfless Spirit off is kind of the priority.
Of course, the thing about it can protect the selfless spirit, and I think that's one of the biggest problems with the card.
Yeah, so if I was to, I mean, the less than ideal line here that I'm also considering is snapping back the Helix on the Spirit.
That would be quite problematic if he has a 0/4 that wouldn't die to the helix.
Well, before the Spellskite resolves, I can snap back the Helix on the Spirit. He'll sack the
Right.
Wanderer in response. Next turn, I'd have to Verdict, and he'd be left with a Spellskite on the board. But I think because I'm at 14 and I still have access to that Helix, my life total is not under too much threat. I'm tempted just to counter the Spellskite.
You know, try to get value rather than.
Yes, I might top a land next turn, which would enable me to pay for the Wanderer. So I'm going to
Yep.
counter the Spellskite.
I think that is the optimal play here.
And on my end, I'm fine with this. Spellskite did its job of protecting the Selfless Spirit, whether it was the one on the board or the one in my hand.
And two Selfless Spirits is a huge problem because even if I was to get any sort of answer to them, like a detention sphere, he would just sack whatever one I target in response.
Mm-hmm.
So this is really tough.
It's becoming really hard to get that 2-for-1 here.
Well, there's the land that I was
Isn't
after.
that, yeah, I think that's quite a good draw here.
The other option is, if once I get the Wanderer off the battlefield, it does enable me to cast 2 turns down the track. Granted, this 4 mana card.
Yeah.
So I think I have to snap back now because he's got 2 cards left in hand, and or do I need to snap back now?
It's interesting to see that a control deck having so many options and none of them being really good.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I love about this deck. It just puts your opponent in so many awkward situations.
Yeah. Spirit's deck is really quite resilient.
Mhm.
That's one of the reasons that I was also doing quite well in standard in the blue-white Flash line.
Yeah, and
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I kind of had a plan until the second Selfless Spirit came down and mucked everything up.
Yeah.
So,
Deck itself is being quite important here.
what I'm actually thinking of doing here, I'm gonna ship the turn and
Yeah, I think that might actually be it.
So I've got two options open to me here. I can in-turn Helix something, or the other one I was looking at. So I'm going to take the damage and go to 9.
One of the problems here being as well that you can just stack yourself with skills and respond that, which would mean that you would not actually gain life.
And I'm just gonna pass the turn back.
So I don't think it's best to go for it here.
Yeah, I'm going to, because the Helix, even if he, the other problem with the Helix as well is he's past a turn of 3 cards in hand. He could flash in any spirit, a Rattle Chains even, and pump that Wanderer to a 2.
Yeah, Spirit deck is really coming out well in this Spaceman Challenger episode.
So the options I'm sort of looking at here is I can snap back the Helix, I'll gain 3 life, and I'll essentially trade it for a Wanderer. Or I can end of turn, I can Cryptic Command to bounce a spirit.
Cryptic is a really good card against this deck. Just fogs and bounces, so much tempo gained.
I might actually, I think I'm going to get a Snapcaster Helix route here.
Yep.
Snapcaster as a creature is pretty much useless in this game because of all the evasion.
Which is usually actually Snapcaster is a big deal because it feels like a 2-for-1 and it gives you a sun blocker and a removal spell. But here with everything having flying, it is really not as good as one would expect.
So I know how flashback works with. I know how flashback works with like remand, but I'm not sure how it works with spell queller.
Yeah, that's
I think
interesting.
I think it's the same way because right now it's an intermittent zone, which is the stack, and if you exile it, it's exiled. And then especially because the element of Spellcore says that when it dies, you return it from exile, which would be the same.
I think now that he's tapped down to 1 mana here, I'm gonna fire this off and hope to hit a queller or a rattle chains.
Where's the drop skull
Ooh.
doing here?
Yeah, those were crazy good hits.
Yeah, I don't think I can actually beat that.
Not to mention that actually the Mausoleum Wanderer itself could have now countered things, which is not even necessary because it's Drop Skull Captain. And normally against this kind of board, you'd really need a board wipe, but that doesn't work when there's 3 Selfless Spirits. This is just looking very grim to the controller.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that could possibly, if I was in black, I could get a Flame Tendrils or something would be awesome right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sadly, I don't have black.
Black Sun seen it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to. I can fire this off. It's kind of free.
Yeah.
Have a look.
Well, it can buy you some time, of course, but that's not going to be easy.
Even these cards, I'm trying to think what I could draw that would do something here.
I think it's pretty much like game over because, well, I know that Emerson has a spell crawler here, and I think the best they could have done
Yeah.
is
So I'm going to just ship the Snapcaster to the bottom. Nahiri, I'm not sure because I need to get the Drog Skull Captain off before I can do anything else.
yeah.
So Nahiri can do that, but for 4 mana.
And Nahiri only exiles a tapped creature, correct?
Yeah, but I have 2 Cryptic Commands, so I can tap down your squad next turn and then Nahiri to get the Drug Skull Captain. But then I'd take the beating the following turn. 2, 4, 6, 7. Yeah, so I think I'm going to keep the Nahiri.
Yeah.
I'm kind of screwed either way. Combat. This guy's doing nothing, so I might as well just get in for 2. I don't think Emerson would be silly enough to block.
You are correct.
So of course, you mentioned the Spell Queller, but under the circumstances, we play as if we don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And so normally the inflection point doesn't really matter here, but normally.
So before he declares blockers, I will tap all his creatures down.
And try to draw a card.
Well, the card would be Nahiri.
You might also want to return to Eternal to its understand.
Yeah, I could target the Drog Skull Captain, but I kind of want to get that with the Nahiri next turn.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to tap all the creatures and draw a card.
And as commonly happens, onboard tricks get forgotten.
Yeah, yes.
Oh, yes, of course. So actually, that Serum Visions wasn't free at all here.
I mean, Wanderer was a 2/2 anyways, so
Yeah, he's got 11 on board, so I'll concede this one.
good games.
That's the match, thanks.
Those are some interesting games, and it looks like Spirit has a very strong matchup against Control as well, so it really comes out quite well.
Yeah, I like I said, I haven't played Control very many times with that deck. Played against Control, but the cards that make their life difficult, and that's what you want to do against Control is just make them make decisions that they don't want to make at times that they don't want to make them.
Because really, every single Spirit you play is almost always has an effect that Control thinks, oh no, I really don't want to see that card.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, and as I mentioned at the start before we started playing the matches, it's just the Selfless Spirit is the one you really have to watch. Because even the Supreme Verdict doesn't care about the Mausoleum Wanderer. But the Spirit is just, Selfless Spirit is just so tough to beat. You can maybe deal with 1, but as soon as you get 2, you're kind of in top deck territory.
And 3 Selfless Spirits backed up with a Spell Queller is really starting to be.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, does that wrap it up?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, thanks a lot, guys.
So this
Thank
is-
you.